Is there anyone who's a proxy today that doesn't have the proxy form? It's the same one as last week. Okay. Everyone has the proxy form if you're a proxy? Okay. The time is 7:04. This meeting is now called to order. Make sure to head over to Turning Point with the session ID of NOV 2022. We are going to begin with the board report given by Pensy, if you would like to come up.
Hello, everyone. Today my board report is pretty short. We had our monthly board meeting, I think a week and a half ago, and essentially we discussed audited financial statements with our auditors from PwC, where they essentially reviewed a lot of the adjustments that they made, as well as their auditing practices. So we discussed those. And then we approved a motion to for the dissolution of the USC Foundation. For context, this has been a foundation that's been contributed, I believe, by a lot of past USC presidents. And the reason for the dissolution was essentially that there was a lot of excess cash, I believe, that wasn't necessarily being allocated anywhere. And so with a lack of direction, and I think like alignment and just participation in that as well, they've decided to move forward with the dissolution of that. And then finally, we essentially approved the appeals board policy and board terms of reference as per the suggestions of the appeals board chair. I can now take any questions if you guys have any. Otherwise, that is the end of my report.
Can we ask, like, how much funds are we talking about in the USC Foundation? And if students want to learn more about that, where could they go?
I believe I can direct this question to Ethan if you do have the answer. Otherwise, no? Okay. Yeah.
President Gardner, go ahead if you would like. Okay.
For context, I believe it was around 70K. So it wasn't necessarily like too material. Again, it was just that it wasn't necessarily being allocated, I believe. If you do have any further questions, I believe you can ask Ethan Gardner afterwards.
For context of what just happened, President Gardner I think disconnected from the Zoom call due to faulty Wi-Fi. He did not answer your question. It wasn't like that. But yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Pensy.
Thank you.
Oh, the slides did not update, but that is okay. So we have one for election item to begin, and the mover is Councillor Mashwari. Can I get a seconder? If you go to the agenda, that's where it is. Councillor Oslis will be the seconder. It is the election of councillors and students at large to training review working group in fulfillment of motion passed at October meeting, if we all remember that. I believe we had 2 councillors, and we're looking for 2 more councillors, as well as for student at large. Correct. Would you have anything to add, or are we gonna accept motions from the floor?
I have a question in terms of because I know there are students at large here who are not here for this purpose, but would it still be okay to plug it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the training review working group, as I formulated, is exists to like review training modules across like our undergraduate student organizations or like any other kind of training. So like, if you are interested, we can still accept nominations off the floor, considering that we only have one person here today for it. So if you're interested in low commitment, or I shouldn't say low commitment, low time commitment student advocacy opportunities, this is a great idea.
Okay, given that the form has already been created, I actually don't think we can accept nominations from the floor for student at large. But thank you for that. Was my fault. Thank you for the plug, though. Just to explain what it is. But we, ooh, that wasn't a good sound. We do need all 4 counselors' names for. So please raise your pocket if you'd like to nominate yourself or someone else. Counselor Mashwari, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Councillor Mohan.
All right. Any accept? Great. And also, one random thing, we have 5 names on the ballot for the student at large right now. That's fine. Okay, further nominations. And we had 2 last meeting, correct? It was Councillor Turner and Councillor Mashwari. One more. Yep, go ahead. Is it for you? Can you do it in the mic? Because, sorry, one more thing. Melissa's on Zoom today, and she's doing the notes, so she can't hear anything that's not.
Councillor Chauhan, and I'd like to nominate myself.
Excellent. All right, are there further nominations? If there are none, those are our 4 counselors. And then from the these students, I have a Google form that is going in Slack under general, as well as for proxies. Feel free to open a private tab and vote twice. Actually, don't do that. Don't do that. But if you're a proxy who doesn't have access to Slack, it's in the sheets. Yes.
Yeah, just want to inquire as to how we're gonna go about it, because I am like pretty sure like that like we have one person here today as a student at large for this.
Would that student at large present like to speak? Or at least let their name be known so we know who's present? That's the 5th name, correct? So keep that in mind. Other than that, do you know any of these people? Well, oh yeah, Councilor Mohan.
I just want to make sure for the candidate that is here, will they have an opportunity? Or
Do you want? Yeah, okay, feel free to come up.
Sorry. My name is Rika. I'm the current co-president of One Love Western, VP of DIA for Alpha Phi, and a home care worker. I'm applying to be part of the training review working group because I want to work towards helping the student body trust the USC and Western by striving to change negative perspectives that students might have. I want to change that by demonstrating that through taking action, students will begin to trust that the university is doing the best to ensure campus safety. My desire for igniting change within the community stems from a passion to help contribute to gender-based violence and intimate partner violence prevention on campus, as well as encouraging the university to become more inclusive to all individuals, no matter their race, class, or ability. The varied positions that I hold within the school uniquely qualify me for the review because I will bring a DIA lens to the group. With all my work experience, I have learned how to be a leader, how to be respectful, understanding, and empathetic to the needs of others. I am skilled at working within a team and have the necessary tools to contribute to researching more solutions that help this team work together to make the campus a safer, more inclusive space for all individuals. Most importantly, my experience has shown me that I do not need to make a big wave to have a significant impact on an individual's life. Sometimes all it takes is a little education and training. Thank you.
Okay, now is in Slack and also in the proxy form. If you have not received it, just maybe raise your placard and I can try to get it to you. Okay, we're gonna give another 30 seconds to add responses, and then I'm gonna move on while Melissa calculates. Okay, with that, we'll have those results shortly after they're calculated and announce them. Now we're gonna move on to the exec reports and the voting for that. Are there any questions on this motion? All right, if there are none, are there any points of debate or amendments to be made to this motion? Not this motion, the motion to approve exec reports. All right, if there are none, please head over to Turning Point to vote. All right, this motion passes unanimously. All right, now moving on to the London City Council pedestrian and cycle safety motion. Are there any questions on this? Unless, Councillor Ossos, would you like an opportunity to? Okay, questions? If there are none, are there any points of debate or amendments to be made? Yes, Councillor Turner.
I just want to commend Councillor Ossos for putting forward this motion, and I just wanted to speak in favor of it. As you all know, as being a victim of this particular issue at hand, I have a strong stake in it, and I know that there's been relative inaction, and municipal candidates and municipal parties are aware of it, and just giving them a little push in the right direction would be really helpful and would ease my peace of mind, even though I wasn't able to pursue a lawsuit in my instance. Just knowing that, counselors and individuals in positions of power are doing something would make me feel really special and happy. So I am in favor of this motion.
Are there any further points of debate? If there are none, please head over to Turning Point to vote. This motion also passes unanimously. From there, we are now moving on to the clerical changes in policy review. Are there any questions on this? Unless the mover would like an opportunity to speak.
I'm good.
Yeah. Okay, if there are no questions, are there any points of debate or amendments to be made? If there are none, please head over to Turning Point to vote. This motion also passes unanimously. This is the repealing the associate and coordinator selection directive motion. Are there any questions unless the mover? I think this is also Gardner. Just raise your Zoom hand if you would like to speak. Okay. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, are there any points of debate or amendments to be made? If there are none, please head over to Turning Point to vote. This motion also passes unanimously. Finally, the My Virtual Care referendum question proposal motion. Councillor Oslis, would you like to speak? Okay, are there any questions? If there are no questions, are there any points of debate or amendments to be made? If there are none, you can head over to Turning Point to vote. This motion also passes unanimously. I was just kidding about that being the last motion. There is also the changes to the executive structure motion. Are there any questions? Unless President Gardner would like to speak. Also, that's motion 10, not motion 6. My bad. Yes, Councilor Dart.
My question is, I was just wondering what sort of measures are you using to gauge whether the changes are going to work?
President Gardner, feel free to, or if you would like to unmute yourself. I'm not sure how his Wi-Fi is.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? And then what do you mean measures? Also, can you hear me? Sorry.
Every day, Zach. Every day,
All right.
So my question is really like, how are we going to measure, and by measure I mean qualitatively, quantitatively, how the changes to the proposed TROs or TORs will affect like executive workload and sort of better help students?
Yep. So I can't hear you guys when I speak, so just keep that in mind in case you're trying to interject. Just raise your hand. I think qualitatively, the biggest piece would be not just final reports, but how the executives feel in that position. It's been a running theme for the last couple of years that both positions have either they're not satisfied with it, or it's just far too stressful. So I think that's the number one thing for qualitative. For quantitative, I think for the events portfolio, it could be the increase in the amount of events that we see on campus every semester. And then for things like the programs, so things like food bank, peer resources, things like that, we could also measure that in how many students they reach, because they can focus more solely on it. I'm muting myself now.
Okay, are there any further questions? Yes. Councillor Troughton.
Just so, question about one of the risk factors you mentioned was that some of the changes may confuse the applicants. So I was just wondering what you are planning on doing in terms of trying to mitigate these confusions so that people still apply.
Yeah, great question. And I think I'll pass it off to Kimi in a sec, but I think the biggest thing is the marketing of the jobs and really putting through a comms campaign, explaining what they are, having job descriptions, having executives speak to it. But again, Kimia is the brains behind that, so I will let her speak on it.
Thanks. Yeah, so just like Ethan said, it kind of comes down to what we do for recruitment and how we kind of structure that campaign, which is already something that's a conversation year over year, educating new students about the positions that are available, not only at the executive level, but in our AVPs, in our coordinators, in our counselors, in our senators, like all of the layers that kind of make up the full spectrum of student leadership. So we've already started talking about what the difference between this year's recruitment would be in the last 3 years. And I think the focus is on what skills do you need to succeed in this job? Who are you as a person that makes you successful in this role, rather than kind of like the job description criteria, because we find that people want to be a part of these organizations because of the impact that they're able to have and the reward that they get from it. So more focusing our recruitment on who you are as a person and why you'd be a good fit for this role, and then being very clear, obviously, that these are changes that will be reflected in the job descriptions.
Further questions? Councillor Meshwari, go ahead.
Yeah, there was a question last week about how this would affect the standing committees. I'm still not clear on if there's any restructuring to those, or how those are going to be split based on the new kind of adjudications of the roles.
1 second, muting myself. Yeah, there won't really be a change in those standing committees. The VP, what are we? Ethan Bestrom's new position. I'm sorry, I forgot the name now. That position will still be involved in the governance and finance, because they will still be the main resource to council, as well as they still will have a role in finances as they handle things like Purple Care and other services. And then Kimia, if there's anything I missed, feel free to clean that up a bit. Thank you.
The title is VP Student Services, and they will be the chair, or not the chair, but they will be overseeing the Governance and Finance Standing Committee, and then the other two will remain the same.
Councillor Osas, go ahead.
Thank you. My question is, would you guys be open to making it governance and student services? I just feel like, in agreement with other people, it's kind of confusing that they would still be running the governance portfolio. And while I do think the description would help a lot, if it's still gonna oversee governance, I feel like student services just doesn't scream governance at all. And I think it would also make people confused by whether they're the chair or prospective chair of Purple Care as well. Would you guys be open to making it governance and student services, especially since it's not the governance role that's small, it's the finance role that's small?
I will take this one, Sophia. I think there is something to be said for how long a title is as well. And that's kind of what we're trying to move away from, is having a whole paragraph that you have to say as your job description. And we classify governance as a service that we offer both within council and externally, and it kind of encompasses a little bit more than just governance that we see here on council floor. I think the other part of that is that when we're looking to recruit qualified candidates, we don't want anyone to feel like governance is a mandatory requirement in order to succeed at the job in terms of prior experience. Once you get into the role, there's plenty of training and plenty of resources to help support you through that part of the job. But what we're looking for is more about people who are passionate at improving, or passionate about improving the USC, including in the governance aspect.
Further questions? If there are none, we'll now move on to the debate and amendment period, if there are any. Yes, Councillor Mahan.
So I think I asked a question last week that kind of highlighted this concern. So I think that just the one thing I want to say to council is that the policy that we are approving is incomplete for a restructure. It will only touch the terms of reference. So it won't touch our corporate bylaw, it won't touch our executive bylaw or our financial bylaw. So if we do pass this, there will be inconsistencies in our policy manual. So we will have to follow up and fix those in due time. So it's just something to be aware of. And I think just for the record, for the future, I think if we do continue to make changes to the USC, it's very important that we're doing it all at once. Because once we start moving in one direction and we realize perhaps another bylaw is not aligned, or we need to have more discussions around whether this is the right choice for our organization, it's difficult to not do that all at once and do it piecemeal in the way that we might go about doing this. So I just want to raise that concern.
Further points of debate? If there are, unless. Okay. In that case, head over to Turning Point to vote, as well as the proxy form. On the proxy form, it's motion 10, not motion 6. Sorry. All right, this motion passes, though not unanimously. And from that, we will move on to the 4 discussion items, which there are none. And then our new segment is the questions from and comments from the Western community. How we're gonna do this is from the gallery. You have to speak into a mic so that everyone on Zoom and also in the recording, you can be picked up. So if you want to come up here or use any of the mics around, that is fine. And as well, if you would want to send me your question via email to speaker@westernusc.ca, that is also an option. So, are there any questions or comments from the community? Okay. With that, that concludes that. And I have the elected, those elected to the training working group. We have Emily Ayubi, we have Wu Fei He, we have Sonia Idris, and Ulrika Schweizer Samuels. And we're just going to, how many of this? Okay. Please raise your placard if you are in favor of having these 8 individuals elected to the working group. Okay, excellent. Lower. Are there any opposed? And are there any of those abstaining? Oh, we did already approve this last meeting, so we didn't need to do that, but okay. Anyways, I think that concludes everything on my end, unless there is new business at this time. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Kidumisi? You have to make the motion. Oh, who wants? Councillor Kermack, go ahead. Into the mic. Councillor Kermack has made a motion to terminate, seconded by Councillor Maheshwari. Are there any objections to terminating at this time? If there are none, this meeting is terminated. You have to make the motion. You have to make the motion. Okay. Feel free to all the cookies, and there's lots of hot chocolate and tea left, so please stick around for that.
Also, heads up, everyone. Just a little extra thing. The recording stopped, yeah?
No.
Could we stop it?
Can we stop the recording?
Thank
the
you.
recording is stopped.
I don't know why I needed that stopped. Anyways, heads up, it is the last day of Movember, and as such, tonight at Rick's during intermission, I will be shaved on stage. So if anyone would like to come see that, it's why I'm dressed so spiffy. Please feel free to come.